He is the most impactful player on a team that has doubled their wins from last year. He lost the ball.
Oh, we have to talk about this. Last night we had our first playing games, and the first game that I really wanted to talk about, and the only game I wanted to talk about from last night, was the Minnesota Timberwolves versus Los Angeles Clippers. The Cleveland and Brooklyn game was a good game. I just didn't feel any need to talk about it because I feel like the next game Cleveland's gonna have is gonna be a lot more important. Plus, I said there was no way that Brooklyn would actually lose to Cleveland. Crazy is, when I was talking to a lot of people about this game, some people really thought that Minnesota didn't have the talent to win this game, that the Clippers were just more experienced. For a big part of the season, I've been actually hyping up this team, and I've been saying, you know, they're very underrated. They have the skill, they have the talent, they have the assets, they have what it takes to win. In fact, I went on a podcast recently, which, by the way, I will leave the link to that in the description below, but we were talking about the play-in matchups, and no one agreed with me when I said the Minnesota Timberwolves were going to win this game. I made a joke about it, but I don't trust Paul George in clutch situations. I honestly don't think he's been doing that good as of lately, and despite him having 34 points last night, man turned in a PG 13% in the fourth quarter. I think what's crazy to me as well is that when Minnesota won, they got a lot of flack because Patrick Beverley had an emotional moment and the whole team just really celebrated, and it was kind of going on like a joke that it looked like this team just won the championship and things of that nature. Look, I'm here for that type of passion. I know some people in the comment section might not believe me, but I actually don't mind Patrick Beverley. Yeah, I didn't like what he did versus Chris Paul, and when he's on the other team, I obviously don't like him, but his story, which I actually listened to on JJ Redick's podcast, it was very interesting to see. Now, I won't lie, if you knew that Patrick Beverley used to play for the Clippers and they did him dirty, I could honestly see why that'd be like his quote-unquote championship game. Not just for Patrick Beverley, but I think for the franchise as well, this was a pretty important win. I mean, the last time the T-Wolves made the playoffs was 2018. However, before that, it was 2004. I do want to break down this game, so before I do get into the content, you guys leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Notifications on. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the year. Also, I'm going to be uploading videos daily during the playoffs and during just the whole postseason in itself, and I'm very excited to be making this type of content. And with all that being said, run that intro. I think something we need to take away from this game is the fact that Karl-Anthony Towns played really bad, and a lot of people are trying to push this narrative that, oh, they don't need Karl-Anthony Towns and he makes the team worse. The thing is, though, for a majority of the season, it seems like when they feed it to Karl-Anthony Towns, you know, and he gets hot, obviously the team does well. However, the Clippers knew that, and they were double teaming Karl-Anthony Towns, making sure that he didn't do that well. And I mean, 11 points and a poor shooting night, plus he fouled out. Yeah, Karl-Anthony Towns did not exactly have the best game. And for a majority of the game, the Minnesota Timberwolves were down, and the Clippers looked like they were going to win that game. But my thing is that when you have a player that is being double teamed, obviously it's going to be hard to feed him. And when that is their sole defensive assignment, when they're solely trying to stop just one person and make sure you don't get him the ball even though he's a big part of your offense, I expect you guys to struggle at least a little bit until you can finally find an adjustment. And when Karl-Anthony Towns fouled out and now they're like, okay, who do we guard? I mean, you have D'Angelo Russell, you have Anthony Edwards, you don't have anyone else that they're going to double team, even though I think if they were going to keep doing that defense, they should have double teamed Anthony Edwards, who actually had himself a night. The T-Wolves have a really big opportunity to be a really good big three, but for some reason this team just doesn't click always, and sometimes they're just very inconsistent with their team, which is one of the reasons why they're not a top seed in the West and they're instead fighting to make the playoffs like they had to. So no, Karl-Anthony Towns is not the player. He's not bad at all. He's not the reason why Minnesota was down so much. I think it definitely did have a reason to do why the Clippers would end up losing that game, because they didn't now know what to do on defense. If this was another game, I'm taking the T-Wolves still regardless, and I could see Karl-Anthony Towns having a way better game than he had last night. Before I go on the Clippers and Paul George, I want to look at a positive here, because Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell really took advantage of the game, and honestly, you'll love to see it. I mentioned Anthony Edwards had a pretty good game, and he did. He had 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 3-pointers made. And D-loading might have actually loaded because he had 29 points, 6 assists, and 3 3-pointers. In fact, ever since Karl-Anthony Towns fouled out the game, they went on a 23-11 run. This is one of the reasons why I said this team could have been really good, because let's say Karl-Anthony Towns is playing bad. Okay, you have Anthony Edwards, you have D'Angelo Russell, you have other guys with depth. I really hope Minnesota does realize this, because now they got a first round matchup versus the Memphis Grizzlies, and that's going to be an interesting series. I haven't seen not one person say Memphis is going to sweep them or beat them in 5. A lot of people think this is going to go to 6 or 7. If Karl-Anthony Towns can outduel Steven Adams, if Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell can average average about 20 to 25 apiece. If guys like Patrick Beverley are good on the defensive side with their Black Air Forces and listen to Young Boy before the game, then this team is going to have success, and I honestly could see them beating the Memphis Grizzlies and having the biggest upset of the playoffs possibly. Now let's move on to the Clippers, because oh, do I have a lot to say about them. I want to start off by saying I think the Los Angeles Clippers after the season should be removed to literally anywhere that is not Los Angeles, maybe Maine, maybe Kansas, I don't know. The Clippers are the worst organization I've seen in basketball, and yes, I know the Sacramento Kings haven't made the playoffs since what, like the 2000s? Now what's crazy is this team has potential, they have a good roster and everything, and a lot of people are going to bring up, oh, Kawhi's not playing. So say they make the 8th seed and they play the Suns and the Suns destroy them, that's probably the argument you're going to hear from everyone. Well, Kawhi hasn't played the entire season, and you got to that point without Kawhi Leonard, so don't even bring him up. That's like if the Chicago Bulls right after losing their first year without Jordan would have said, oh, if we had Michael Jordan, like, you don't know when he's coming back, he may never come back. You can't use someone that's not playing as an excuse just to justify why you guys lost and you guys just fucking sucked. Now that all the Clippers fans are gone, let me get into my PG 13% appreciation post. In the words of my good friend Ignorance of Basketball, there are many things you can rely on that are certain. One is taxes, the other one is Paul George choking in the 4th quarter. What's crazy is Way Off P actually had 34 points in the game, which I thought was so weird how he was able to struggle in the 4th quarter and choke that game. The reality is that the Clippers are not going to go out of the playoffs. There is no way in hell they lose to the Spurs or Pelicans. Now, personally, I think it would be funny as hell if the Spurs beat the Pelicans and then they would go on to play the Clippers and beat them. I don't know, I would just think it's kind of funny. Just for the fact that the Spurs weren't even trying to make the playoffs, it was just the Lakers being the worst team in the league this year, and that's why they made the playoffs. But shit, at this point, you have some talent, you have an opportunity. Why not just fuck up the West and try to make the actual playoffs? The realization is that the Clippers are probably not going to lose this. However, Spurs fans, I'm gonna be rooting with y'all and hoping you guys could beat the Clippers because I want to see this happen. I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is the main thing that people have been discussing, is the fact that the Minnesota Timberwolves were basically being made fun of, and more importantly, Patrick Beverley, because of the emotional celebration he had. Look, I'm all for passion in sports, so honestly, I don't know why people are trying to come at Patrick Beverley. He really deserved this moment. He played a really good game, and he's playing versus his former team. You have to remember that people have said that the Minnesota Timberwolves are similar to the Kings when it comes to a franchise. They're in the playoffs, they have a loaded team. Now they have an opportunity to actually win a playoff series and maybe go on a run. It was so ironic seeing teams like the Lakers and the Knicks trying to be like, oh, why are they celebrating? Like, we could never. Like, y'all are never celebrating because y'all have no playoff success. You couldn't even make a fucking system that is totally useless that I guess just adds more games so the NBA can make more money. That's the only realization I can come with. I genuinely didn't really think I'd enjoy the play-in this year. However, so far, I will say with the first 2 games out of the way, I actually did enjoy myself watching these games, and honestly, I'm excited for tonight. People can hate on the T-Wolves and saying that what they did was immature, but at the end of the day, just let them celebrate, let them enjoy this moment. I know people saying, oh, it's their one and shining moment, like making fun of them and saying they're not going to do anything else after this. Like I said, you have to remember the drought that this team went through and how bad they've been for so many years. Let them celebrate making the playoffs, and then they're going to regroup, and they might actually do something in the playoffs. I actually like this Minnesota team, and I'm pulling for them. However, if you play my Suns in the playoffs, then we're going to have a problem. But no, all jokes aside, seriously, congratulations to the Minnesota Timberwolves on making the playoffs, and the Clippers, don't fucking lose to the Spurs or Pelicans, or the next day I will eviscerate you on a 8-minute video talking about the facts why you guys are a joke and talk bad about Paul George for 8 minutes straight.